guys, welcome back. I'm super excited to jump into Romans chapter 2 today.
Hey guys, so last week Kim was talking to us about how we all mess up, and Paul was talking about that in Romans 1. How many of you ever messed up, but you didn't know it? You didn't know you broke the rule. You didn't know that there was something that somebody had said about that. Does that sound familiar at all? Maybe at school, maybe at home, like your parents told like your sibling, but they didn't tell you, and so you just didn't know. Well, that's one of the things that they're talking about in chapter 1 also, is how sometimes there's a mess up, but people didn't know. Well, in chapter 2, it's not just the people now that didn't know, but it's the people that did know. Because the Jews were also reading this letter. There are also Jews in that church in Rome. And so they knew the law. They had heard about it because they knew about Moses and they knew about the Old Testament and they knew what God had commanded them. And so Paul was saying to them, hey, you know, but you still are disobeying. And so what's worse? And so if you look in chapter 2, and if you have a Bible like mine, it's on page 1040. So if you look there, that's where Romans 2 is at, and that's where it starts talking about that. And Paul gets into that for those because he doesn't want the Jews to start thinking, oh, I'm better than the Romans, I'm better than the Greeks, I'm better than any of those Gentiles, those non-Jews, because they're messing up. And Paul's trying to remind them, he's trying to remember as well, that just because you know the rules doesn't mean that you're following them too. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So when you look at that, that's what Romans 2 gets into. And so I was trying to think, and if you think back, there's a story about David in the Old Testament. Do you guys know who David is? You guys remember David?
Yeah.
Okay, and he did a lot of great things, and he was somebody that God even said, look, he's a man who's after my own heart, because his heart, his passion, his love for God was so sincere, it was so genuine, and that was such a part of who he was that God could give him that. But even David messed up. And so it reminded me of this time where David knew the rules, but he still disobeyed God. And so how many of you have ever taken something that wasn't yours? Not your finest moment, right? Not your finest moment. Might have been really young, might not have been that long ago. Guys, how many of you have done that? Might have been your siblings, I'm just saying. Okay, well, King David did that too. Except for it wasn't just like he took somebody's favorite sword or their favorite spear. He took their wife.
Oh, that
Not good. And then, on top of that, he had them killed.
What?
Okay, who can agree that's not a good idea?
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Okay,
Not the smartest.
David knew it, but he still did it. Okay, and he was trying to cover his tracks. He didn't want to get caught. How many of you don't want to get caught? Like, all this stuff is pretty normal, right? Like, this is part of human nature. Is it a good idea? No. But it's part of what we do, right? So we can recognize it when we see it. So if you go to page 290 in the same Bible, you can see the story is actually in 2 Samuel. The first part where David screws up is in chapter 11. But chapter 12, that's where God actually sends somebody to him, one of the prophets from back then. If you don't know what a prophet is, Jesus hadn't come yet. So they had to have somebody that spoke to God for him, and he would relay what God had told him. And so a prophet came, and at that time his name was Nathan. Anybody know a Nathan?
Oh, yeah,
That's not one of the weird names. David, Nathan, not weird names. There's some weird names in the Bible. Those ones aren't them. Okay? So, but Nathan came, and he told David a story, and he said, there were two men in a certain city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had very many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing but one little ewe, that's one sheep, lamb, which he had bought. And he brought it up, and it grew up with him and with his children. He used to eat of his morsel and drink from his cup and lie in his arms. And he was like a daughter to him. You know, nowadays we'd call it somebody's pet, you know, but it was like another child. Yeah. Okay? So it's a meaningful part of the family. Now there came a traveler to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take one of his own flock or herd to prepare for the guest who had come to him. But he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. Then David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this deserves to die. and he shall restore the lamb fourfold because he did this thing and because he had no pity. Nathan said to David, you are the man. And guys, it's one of those things where it's so easy to see it when it's somebody else, but it's so hard to see it sometimes when it's us, and it's so easy to make excuses. But it's one of those things where in Romans 2, because thankfully Romans 2 isn't the end of the letter, but Romans 2, Paul's trying to get everybody on the same page here, where he's saying in chapter 1 that, hey, everybody messes up, even these people that don't know it. And now he's reminding everybody that does know better, hey, you guys mess up too. And guys, that's one of the things for us. Like, maybe there's things where when it comes to God's laws, you don't know it, and so you didn't know you messed up. Yeah. And maybe there's stuff where you knew it and you did mess up. And all that is why we need Jesus. But that's not where it ends. But we have to start with that same understanding, because if we don't understand that, then where Paul goes from here, it isn't going to make sense. So I hope this is a good start. I hope you guys are ready for next week, because there's more coming.
You heard him, guys. You cannot miss next week as we jump into the next chapter of Romans.